So Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Bhagavad-Gita chapter 12 is all about devotional service. And if we see Srila Prabhupada's purports pretty much from the beginning, he talks very much about Bhakti Yoga throughout the Gita. And even if perhaps the topic is related to Karma Yoga, Srila Prabhupada often uses the term Bhakti Yoga for both. And if we see how Krishna develops the theme of Bhakti, he's placed it in many, many parts of the Gita, even before we get to chapter 12. So in every chapter, apart from the first chapter where he doesn't say much, in all the other chapters, there's sprinkling of hints, strong hints, that one should perform bhakti. And bhakti is where effectively Krishna is brought in the picture, preferably in the center of our lives. So we can just take a few examples of what we mean by this. So for example, if we look at chapter 2, text 61, he says, one who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. So that's pretty early on in his teachings to message to Arjuna. Text 30 of chapter 3, in fact, text 9 of chapter 3 says, Yagna, how's it go again? Yagnatat karmono nayatra. He says, one must perform sacrifice for the benefit of Lord Vishnu. Otherwise, it will bind us to this world. Any work will bind us to this world. But in text 30, he says even more in more emphatic terms. Therefore, Arjuna, surrendering all your works onto me with full knowledge of me, without desire for profit, with no claim to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, find. So there again, Bhakti Yoga is very strongly hinted. And then text number 9 of chapter 4, Janma Karma Cha Me Devam, very famous verse. Krishna is really giving Arjuna the message that one who knows my appearance, my activities, he doesn't leave, he doesn't take a birth again in this world. He comes to my eternal abode. Again, strong inclinations towards Bhakti Yoga. And then the last verse of chapter 5, text 29, this is the peace formula, if devotees remember. Person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. And then chapter 6, even though it's all about Dhyana Yoga, he talks about Dhyana Yoga in context of meditation upon him. One should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. And we know chapter 10, text 30 of the same chapter, he says, for one who sees me everywhere, sees everything in me, I am never lost, and he's never lost to me. And then the last verse of chapter 6, text number 47, he describes the perfect yogi, one who thinks of him within himself, renders transcendental loving service, is the most intimately united with me in yoga. So, and he's the highest of all. So Krishna is laying it down. And then text 1 of chapter 7, he talks about how practicing yoga in full consciousness of him, mind attached to him, we can know him in full. And one of my favorite verses, 14th verse of chapter 7, Devi Esha Gunamayi. This divine energy of mine, this material world is divine because it's his energy, but it's very difficult to overcome. But then Krishna says, that person who surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. And then texts 5 to 8 of Bhagavad-Gita, where he talks about one who leaves this body remembering him will achieve him. Text 14, again, is talking about one who remembers him without deviation. He's so easy to obtain. The final text of chapter 9, he says, engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, worship me, you surely will come to me. He says this verse twice in the Bhagavad-Gita. Again, he repeated it towards the end of chapter 18. And then the Chatusloki, 10.8 to 10.11, he describes, this is the essence of Bhagavad-Gita, he's simply describing how one who worships him with all their heart, they live with him. And he guides those who are constantly devoted to him. And it also destroys any ignorance in their hearts. And then the last chapter that we discussed before chapter 12, which is chapter 11, the last two verses, although Krishna shows the universal form and then he shows the four-handed Vishnu form, then again he comes back to his original two-handed form and he declares it very clearly that only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you in this two-handed form, original form. So Bhakti Yoga has very, is mentioned many, many, many times before even we get to the 12th chapter. And then Arjun asks the question from Krishna, is it better to serve your personal form or your impersonal form? And Krishna is very emphatic in his answer. It's much easier, much better, much more fulfilling spiritually if you serve my personal form. And then the second part of it was very glorious of Lord Krishna, so tolerant that if you can't fix your mind on me, then follow the principles of Bhakti Yoga. If you can't do that, work for me. If you can't do that, then you start with some knowledge, gather some knowledge. Better than knowledge is meditation. Better than meditation is giving up the fruits of your work. So in this way, Krishna kept lowering the standards so that wherever we are, we can adjust ourselves to serve him somehow or other and try to improve our service to him. And then wonderfully, Bhavani asked the question last time, what about the Bhakta? How does he fit into this? What is Krishna's view of him? And this is exactly what Krishna goes into for the next 8 verses. In the next 8 verses, Krishna describes how the Bhakta, the devotee, behaves. And I'd like somebody to read. Naniben, would you like to read?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji. Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 13 to 14. One who is not envious, but is a kind friend, all living entities, who does not think about himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, with mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. Text 15. Me by whom no one is put into the difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. Text 18. My devotee, who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some results, is very dear to me. Text 17. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and one who announces both auspicious and inauspicious things. Such a devotee is very dear to me. Text 18 to 19. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who does not care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me. Text 20. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very, very dear to me. End of chapter 1. Hare Krishna.
Chapter 11, chapter 12, yeah. Oops, I've got it wrong as well. Bhakti Yoga. Thank you very much, Nariman. Chapter 12, Bhakti Yoga Ki Jai. So extraordinary how we've sort of color coded it. I hope nobody's colorblind. But every verse, Krishna describes the quality of the devotee, and he explains, such a devotee is very dear to me. He's repeated that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And the other bit is the happiness, distress. We'll come to that bit later on. So these are the 8 slokas. This is Bhakta Ashtakam. Krishna's glorifying the Bhakta, the behavior of the Bhakta. When we engage in devotional service, we naturally begin to develop these saintly qualities. And the test is, if we are developing these qualities, then we're progressing. If we're not, then we need to understand that we still got some way to go. If we're doing bhakti and these qualities are automatically come, they're not something that we can necessarily develop ourselves of our own accord. These qualities will not generally manifest. We may try to get these qualities, but generally it requires the assistance of the Lord through following the process of bhakti yoga. So let's look at these, the list of all these different qualities. So Krishna says, one who's not envious, who's kind, freed from false ego, equal in happiness and distress. And he says that bit 4 times, happiness and distress. So how important it is that he categorizes that, he mentions that 4 times in separate verses. Satisfaction, placing no one in difficulty, free from anxiety, independence from the ordinary course of activities. That means basically renounced or detached. Purity, expertise, freedom from lamentation, rasping of, I'm not sure what rasping is, neither pleasure nor not wanting, not worrying when there's pleasure or grief, equality with both friends and enemies. Ooh, that's a tough one. Equipoise in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, freed from contamination, silent, established in knowledge, satisfied. So these are the qualities. 18 of them.
Silence doesn't mean not talking. It means it's talking about Krishna.
Yeah. We know many yogis who are silent, or many people who are silent, but unfortunately when they open their mouth, all sorts of rubbish comes out. So it's better to speak about Krishna whenever you can. That's real silence, because you're silent from the material point of view. Now, all these 18 different qualities can be categorized in 4 different parts. So we just wanted to show how they can be categorized. So there's attitude towards oneself, ourselves, how we're dealing with others, how we react when challenging situations arise, and our dealings with the Lord. So these are the 4 broad categories. And this is a little idea. It's a lot going on in this slide, but let me just walk you through it. Qualities that endear one to Krishna. And these are ancillary in the sense that the main essential quality is become a devotee. If we become a devotee, all of these qualities naturally will arise in oneself. But let's see how we can categorize them. So attitude towards oneself. Nirmama, free from sense of proprietorship, free from false ego, knows that I am not the body. So these are all qualities which pertain to ourselves, how we are dealing with ourselves, free from all material endeavors, equipoised. And then the second category is dealing with other living entities. We're not envious, kind to everyone, even to the enemy, equal to friends and enemies, udasina, without cares, always free from contaminating association, silent. So again, the silence isn't that silence where you don't say anything, but when you meet, you discuss about Krishna. You ask about the welfare, not just the material body, but also the spiritual body. How is your chanting? How is your reading? Tell me, share something that you read about Krishna. No, that sort of dealings. It's very, very nice dealings. And then how we react to things that happen to us. We're satisfied, tolerant, daksha, expert, self-controlled, equipoised in happiness, distress. Again, that comes. So some, often we get very challenging situations come to us. How are we? Are we taking that equally, whether it's a happy challenge or a stressful challenge? Are we neutral? Are we pure? Neither rejoicing or grieving over material loss, neither lament nor desires. These are all, from a material point of view, for all of us, challenging, because we've lived in this material world for a long time. To develop these self-centered qualities takes time, and to do it independently with our own strength is not possible. But when we engage in bhakti, as I mentioned, then slowly, one by one, slowly, these qualities, we will see them manifest. And if we don't see them manifest, then we know we've still got a lot of work to do. We can judge ourselves. Dealing with the Lord, so the fourth category, we're determined, our mind intelligence is fixed on the Lord, and we engage in bhakti yoga. That's essentially text number 20. So these are how the four categories are. We can show them. Now, devotees who have these qualities conquer the heart of Krishna, because this is what he's looking for. This is what he's looking for, and through bhakti, we'll acquire these. And when we get these qualities, we can actually hold the Lord within our heart, can make him a captive of our love. So the lesson, I wanted to pick one item, because in 4 of these 8 verses, Krishna mentions that the devotee who is dear to him is equal in both happiness and distress. Like 4 times he mentions it. So, and this is the world mainly of distress, right? Mainly, the mass majority of things that happen are stressful. So what is the thought process of the devotee who comes across distress? Let's have a look at that. Primarily, there's one verse, which is in the Bhagavatam, which is such an amazing verse, because it describes how the devotee deals with distress. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering you respectful obeisances within his heart, words and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. So this verse is found in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 14th chapter, 8th sloka. And this is particularly important. While patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds. So what is this thought process? What is this patience? He thinks it's the Lord's mercy on him. How can distress be the Lord's mercy on us? Understands the soul, the jiva, the devotee understands. This is my past misdeeds. I've done something wrong in the past for which I am suffering. And my suffering, if it wasn't for the Lord, would be far, far greater. But the Lord has just minimized that suffering. That's one of the thought processes the devotee goes through when he's struggling in this world. That actually, my suffering would be much greater. But the Lord has minimized it. And also we take responsibility. I'm suffering this because I have done something wrong. It's easy to point fingers. It's your fault, or his fault, or my parents' fault, or my children's fault. And it may well be, they may well be the instrument of our karma. But ultimately, nothing happens without a reason. That's the law of karma. Every action has a reaction. So if we're going through suffering and stress, we should understand that this is because of something I've done wrong in my past life. I'm just paying the price. Once I've paid the price, that's it. No more price to pay for that suffering. I've done it. And the Lord has very kindly minimized it. Second part is, by the Lord's mercy, I'm not getting all the punishment I am due. The Lord has minimized. So we've said that already. He thinks that this person is acting as my enemy due to my own past misdeeds. So I should not be angry at the instrument of my karma. So that's generally the thought process one goes through. And what is the advantage of doing that, going through this thought process? Devotee is likely to be calm, quiet, patient, despite many distressful conditions. And nor is he going to be envious of anyone or disturbed by their behavior or become his enemy's enemy. And the ultimate result of all of this is that one becomes eligible to be with the Lord. Because one is indifferent, whether one is in distress or in happiness. And Krishna says it 4 times in this Bhakta Astakam. So it's quite important to get this bit right. And everybody's in distress, right? In this world, this is called Kalayam Ashwatam. Shashwatam. Ashashwatam. Kalayam Ashashwatam. Place of temporary and miserable place. So suffering, it will come whether we ask for it or we don't ask for it. But how we deal with it is going to make us or break us. And if we use this thought process, it will actually give us a lot of strength to deal with the challenges. Okay, so I wanted Madhusudan Prabhu, please.
Hi, Haribol, Habi. Yeah, this is really nice part of the Bhagavad-Gita, which is where Krishna is actually saying who is dear to him. And the qualities that a devotee has. Obviously, there's some echo. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you fine.
Oh, okay. So there was some sort of echo or something. Anyway. Yeah, so, Krishna is saying that, basically, so we've taken birth in ignorance. We're in the material world. Somehow we got a human birth. So we think we're fortunate, and then we should just endeavor to just live up to most of the time other people's expectations. Think, that, oh, I have to fulfill my desires or my wishes of my parents or my other friends. What will other people think if I do this, that? So we're always living with that kind of pressure on us all the time, and then we're not choosing the right thing that we need to do at times, which is in the best interest of us, And under this guidance, when we take on to Krishna consciousness, the first quality, is non-enviousness. When we are not envious of the Lord, that means we are not envious of His creation as well. Krishna's creation, respecting all the animals, all the living entities. So mercy is the first quality that we have to develop, and be merciful and be respectful towards Krishna's creation, and then showing kindness. Kindness is, again, so that's why we take on to the path of eating food that's not come by violent means, that's caused suffering to other living entities, or then we understand that, and then we develop that quality within our heart, that this is not a nice thing. It's causing pain and suffering to so many. So I should choose the right thing to do in order to alleviate suffering. And then, our false ego is also very much animalistic, because we've taken birth in animalistic kind of life for such a long time that our ego is very animalistic. Anything we see, wow, I must eat that. Those are very, very animalistic. You can say they're just living a life of just eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and anything they see, I'm going to eat that. Anything that moves, I'm going to try and eat it. That's the kind of mentality you have. And some people even go to the extent of, eating dogs, cats, anything that moves. Some parts of the world, the culture is like that. The human behavior is like that. So there's this ego is very enormous. So when we start to read Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna Leela, and we listen to the pastimes of within the Krishna Leela, there's Putana, how she has got this envious nature of Krishna, and she wants to poison Krishna. And then there are other Agasura who wants to, must eat all the Krishna's Gopals and destroy them. And so all these envious qualities are there, So within Krishna Leela, there are all these demoniac kind of qualities that, as we read and we understand, these qualities go away from us. But Lord Chaitanya also says that, we must be as tolerant as a tree and as humble as a blade of grass. Tarorapi suisunamani namanadena. We must give respect to even the smallest of the living creatures, and right from the demigods right down to the single ant, we must be giving respect to all living entities. Amani namadena kirtanya sadhari. Then you do kirtan all the time. By doing kirtan, you will develop the qualities, So there are a lot of qualities here that we are in the process of developing within us. But it's the ego, the animalistic tendencies that we have, that starts to dissipate within us, and then we start to see the qualities that, and then you study other devotees who have got those qualities, they attract people. Prabhupada attracted so many people, and they liked his nature, his character, and he was so loving, he was kind, and you like those sort of people. So when you got these qualities, you'll automatically develop these qualities, hopefully, and you will attract. Our job is to try and attract other people to Krishna, not to actually repel them as well. And by our behavior and by our nature, when we are equipoised, whether it's honor, dishonor, or whether we are satisfied with things and not hankering and not lamenting, not backbiting and putting other people down, or these sort of qualities, then other people will get attracted, and hopefully attract them to Krishna as well. So nice list of all the qualities, devotional and bhakti can bring to a person and his character as well. I hope that
That's good.
helps a bit.
Yes, thank you, Mother Sambhu. Any yes, Naniven.
Yes, Prabhuji, I've seen some of these qualities in people who are not into Krishna consciousness, or others, like people who work with me, those who are other doctors from other religions. But I thought they all were intermingling among three modes of the material nature. So a bit difficult to understand how these don't manifest themselves. And you have to have a guru to have them manifested. But they are qualities which you can see in a lot of people.
Yeah, because these qualities actually are more or less in Satagun. So
Yes.
One who is in Satagun will, to some degree, manifest these qualities. But only when one is in Bhakti Yoga, in full Krishna consciousness, will these qualities manifest in such a way that they serve the Lord through these qualities. So that's why Krishna keeps saying, that, he by whom no one is put in difficulty, who is not disturbed by anyone, who is occupied in happiness, stress, fear, and anxiety, is very dear to me. Now, if somebody is automatically manifesting these qualities because they're in the mode of goodness, that's because of their past karma, their swabhav, their samskars, that's right. So they're naturally manifesting those qualities. But if they're not in connection with the Supreme Lord, then those qualities will sometimes manifest, and sometimes due to perhaps pride or arrogance, they would diminish again. Because when somebody is, has got a lot of good qualities, they become a little bit proud. And that pride leads to, like karma activities which will reduce that pride eventually, because the effect will be like that. It's, for example, in the in the Krishna book, Prabhupada gives an example of a flower, very beautiful looking flower, but if you smell the flower, there's no smell. And he explains, one who has great qualities, such as intelligence or forgiveness or whatever, if they have those qualities, but they're not got any inclination towards God, it's just like a flower without any smell.
Ah, yes.
Yeah? So those qualities may well manifest in many people. Yes, I agree with you. I've seen those over the years in some of them at least, many different types of people. However, because they are subject to the laws of material nature, modes of three, goodness, passion, ignorance, three modes of material nature, sometimes those qualities will come because of their good activities, good karma, good swabhav, good sukruti, good samskars. But then sometimes they will not be there because we are unfortunately in this cycle of birth and death, up and down all the time.
And those people who not in bhakti, it might be easier to actually engage them in devotional service because they have those qualities already as well.
Yeah.
That's right.
Best combined with your nature of goodness with the Krishna consciousness to get the best and develop more and more into that, rather than fall down pride because of you feel you've got good qualities which others don't have.
Yes, very good point. Actually, if you don't mind, you are a good example of somebody who, it is naturally got these qualities. So you're sort of already in the mode of goodness. So for you to take the step is very
Easy.
sort of easy, but it can, because, you know, false ego can stop you doing it. But somehow or other, for you personally, for what I've experienced of you, you've taken to it very, very nicely. And it's almost like a natural progression for you. You're not making a separate endeavor. You know, like it's not a mental adjustment for you. You're just taking it in your stride, and it's just coming to you very naturally. I don't know, I might be wrong.
It's happening, but I don't understand why. It's just in the last few months, about six months, 1 year, seem to be more and more into it. And I just take it and get some interest in it. As I told last time, I had the Bhagavad-Gita. I was not reading it or reading it, but not understanding it. But now I'm really enjoying it. So something is happening, and it's all due to Krishna, I would say that.
For sure. Krishna and your effort, so it's very good. You've got an open mind,
Yes.
but also you've got the good qualities which will just help. Yeah, it will definitely help.
Yeah.
Well done.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Navi, and that's why, you know, even Guru Maharaj and in association of devotees, at least they say, you know, at least come to the platform of Sattva Guna at least.
That's right.
You know, come into at least, and some of them, you know, will encourage you to at least be a human being first.
Yeah. Become conscious, and then you become Krishna conscious.
Yeah, then you become conscious of Krishna conscious.
Good point. Good point. Thank you for reminding. That was good. Anybody else would like to ask anything?
Me again, Prabhuji. So
Yes.
you said in the beginning something about Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga combining. I think I misunderstood.
Oh, well, no. It's basically because Karma Yoga is where you act, but you're not necessarily attached to the fruits of your labor. And Bhakti Yoga is where you act, but actually you're acting in conscious, together with being conscious of Krishna. So in one sense, there's a big difference, but in another sense, they're very similar, because all you have to do in Karma Yoga is, because you're not attached to the fruits, you've just got to attach the fruits to Krishna. That's all. And then that becomes pretty much Bhakti Yoga. So sometimes Prabhupada uses those phases interchangeably.
Yes.
So sometimes he may say Karma Yoga, sometimes he may say Bhakti Yoga, and it's sort of used interchangeably. Effectively, he's always emphasizing Bhakti Yoga. And that's partly because if you see, well, like we looked at the beginning of this session, Krishna also has intermingled Bhakti Yoga through all of the chapters. So even though the chapter is called Karma Yoga, actually the focus is still Bhakti Yoga.
So it was confusing, but you made it clear today. It was confusing.
Yeah, it can be. And Prabhupada was amazing, you know, because his mood was, if I go back to the spiritual world, I want to leave something for people like us, because, you know, we're so in ignorance. So he used to pack his purports with as much knowledge as possible to help us. And that's why he would not worry too much about Astanga Yoga or Karma Yoga or anything else. You just go straight to the nectar, the Bhakti Yoga. So sometimes, you know, the verse will talk about Karma Yoga and Prabhupada's talk about Bhakti Yoga. And you think, hang on a minute, how's this tally? How does this match? But actually Prabhupada's mood was, you know, Bhakti Yoga, it includes all the other yogas. So don't worry about any other yogas, just go into Bhakti Yoga. It's a fascinating mood Prabhupada had. Yes, anybody else would like to make any comment? So we've completed 2/3 of the Bhagavad-Gita, and especially this chapter is very fascinating to read and try to get our heads around. I hope it's helped where we are. The next 6 chapters are, the theme is Gyan Yoga, and it's where Krishna gives a little bit more analytical knowledge to Arjun. So it can be sometimes a little bit involved because he wants to give knowledge and to strengthen our faith and our foundation in Krishna consciousness. So it's, yeah, I've been very pleased. Today we're missing a few people, but I'm sure they'll be back tomorrow. In the meantime, we've got 10 minutes. So I was thinking, if nobody's got any questions or any comments, Sanjana.
Hare Krishna, Navi.
Hare Krishna, I'm going to put you on the spot.
You want me to do the summary?
Yes.
We'll
We'll do it tomorrow as well, but I think you may not be with us. But I like to hear you.
Okay. Shall I go back to chapter 6?
Yes. So chapter 6 is good. Chapter 6 to chapter 12, yeah.
Okay, I'll do my best. So yep, if we cast our minds back to chapter 6, Krishna starts to outline the fundamentals of Ashtanga yoga and controlling the mind and how this can be very difficult. And Arjun replies saying, oh my God, Krishna, that sounds harder than controlling the wind. I don't see how this could be possible. And Krishna admits, he says, yes, it's a very, very difficult practice, but in my opinion, I think that with good, with a lot of practice, with daily practice, it can be attained. But I think he also says that it's a lot easier to attain in this age with the bhakti yoga and just focusing the consciousness on me. So obviously building up to what we've learned today about chapter 12. So in chapter 7, we get more knowledge about the absolute. So the first thing is outlined that where Krishna is, the source of Krishna can be found in everything. So he's in the taste of water, the taste of our food, the sunlight, the plants. And so a key message there is just keeping to remember to like see divinity in everything, and just keep saying Hare Krishna, because his source of his divinity and his divinity can be seen everywhere. And then this moves on to the second part of chapter 7, where it's, well, if Krishna can be seen everywhere, then how is it still possible to deny him? And so he outlines the 4 types of people who won't approach him, and then the 4 types of people who will. And he says this, it's very, very rare to find a devotee who will approach him in sort of full, no ulterior motive. But that if we approach him, we can sort of develop that love for him. And I think lastly he talks about the devatas, and he basically explains their position in relation to him. So even though we should respect the devatas, they are his, they carry out work in service of him, so they like work in different sort of departments to help maintain the creation. So even if we worship the devatas, we're actually indirectly worshipping Krishna. So it actually makes more sense to worship Krishna directly or exclusively.
Good.
And then in chapter 8, which is attaining the supreme, so it begins with Arjun, who asks Krishna a series of questions, and the final question finishes with him asking what happens to us at the point of death. So Krishna answers that at the point of death you attain anything that basically what you're thinking of. So therefore, if you're looking to attain Krishna, you should try and make sure that you're thinking of him when you die. But obviously, if you haven't really been thinking about him all your life, it's unlikely that that's going to be the first thing you ever think of. So really, we're all rehearsing for that moment, that test, when we're finally given that passage, that opportunity to pass into the world of Krishna. And then he goes back to sort of Ashtanga yoga, which is already very difficult, which we can remember from chapter 6. Even if you manage to achieve that, there are still many technicalities about whether if the sun is in a particular place, this might mean that you don't attain where you want to go. So actually, he just closes the chapter by saying, but if you surrender yourself to me and perform bhakti yoga, you will attain me no matter what I shall deliver you. The chapter 9 is the middle of the Bhagavad-Gita, and we are able to attain the most confidential knowledge, where we are told a little bit more about the nature of Krishna, how he's inconceivable and very powerful. Okay, I'm trying to remember everything now. Just, yeah, a lot more. Oh God, I got completely blank. Hang on, give me 2 seconds.
He also talks about chapter 9, how he can be worshipped so simply. Is it Patram Pushpam? You just have to offer him flower, leaf, fruit, and water.
Oh yeah. Yeah, just how he can be we can offer him anything, and sort of emphasizing that theme of bhakti yoga as well. In chapter 10, Krishna outlines a little bit more of his opulences.
Yes.
So, Arjun accepts him as a supreme lord, and he says, please tell me more about you and who you are and what you do. And Krishna obviously says that there's many endless things that endless forms and endless things and pastimes that he undergoes, but he shows 82 opulences. He describes them, and they're all just showing, again, emphasizing that Krishna's divinity is everywhere and that his divinity is supreme. So this is, by reading this chapter, we can learn to sort of accept Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead, but also learn to love him. And even after describing these 82 opulences, he still says that this is a fragment of what he can do and how he can maintain the creation. And in chapter 11, Arjun requests Krishna to whether we can see the universal form, his universal form. This is largely for our benefit, or it sets a standard, because we should be, we can't really accept false gods. So by outlining this process, we can know how and what we should be looking for if someone, for example, was to be claiming to be an incarnation of Krishna.
Good.
So then we are given a description of the universal form. And this is a very sort of terrifying, large form. There's many, many heads. Arjun can see also Dronacharya, Bhishma, many other characters of the Mahabharata being destroyed. So that also reminds us that the Pandavas will probably gain victory. But also it's very, very sort of disturbing to Arjun. He feels very unsettled. So then Krishna, he requests Krishna to go into his four-handed form, his four-handed Vishnu form. And then eventually Krishna also goes into his original two-handed form, which he reminds us is very, very difficult to attain, even to see. And actually to see his two-handed form, we should see it, it's like the most difficult to attain, but we can attain it through bhakti. So again, emphasizing that, which now leads us to chapter 12, where it outlines a little bit more what we can do to engage in devotional service of the Lord. So it starts with Arjun asking, what is better, to worship your impersonal form or your personal form? And Krishna quite emphatically says, yes, worship my personal form, because it can be very difficult to meditate on something that's impersonal. And it also takes away from the relationship, because there's no reciprocation, there's no devotion or action, really, if you're worshipping an impersonal form. And though someone who does worship the impersonal form, if they do manage to think on it perfectly, they will eventually attain Krishna. It's very, very, very difficult. And again, just takes away from that relationship. And then the second theme, he talks about the different sort of stages of bhakti, because he's very, very kind and very merciful. He's given us just small fragments about how we can sort of step up the yoga ladder and step up bhakti. It just reminds us that Krishna is very patient and he's just waiting for us to step up. He starts with saying, gather knowledge, meditate on me, renounce your actions, and start to work for me. then follow the regulations strictly, and then attain Krishna Prem and just forever have your mind fixed in me. And then lastly, we just looked at the qualities of that are very dear to Krishna. So being equal in happiness and distress, being free from pains, being kind to your enemies, patient, kind to your friends, and just gathering all those saintly qualities that also makes you an attractive person. Just
Good point.
sorry, I stumbled a bit in the middle there.
Well done. That was amazing. You captured it well, considering I've just put you on the spot, and you spoke without notes, and you remembered a lot, so well done. It's not so easy to remember a lot of these points, so congratulations. I think you did amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done. Just a couple of things. It was like in the sixth chapter, he said, Arjuna asked some really nice questions as well. He says, apart from the one about the mind, because Krishna said, yes, by practice and detachment. And then Arjuna still kept on at Krishna saying, wait a minute, what if the yogi fails? Is he neither in this world, because he's no longer part of the material world, but he's failed to reach the spiritual world? So is he stuck in the middle somewhere? And then Krishna gives such a beautiful answer saying, no, 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 no. One who takes to this practice is never lost. Even a little advancement in this will protect that person. And he will be born in a righteous family and he'll continue where he left off. So Krishna sort of gives some really nice assurances that if you take to this path, there is no loss, there's no diminution. And then in chapter 9, he confirms that by saying, whatever they lack, you know, I will make it up. And whatever they have, bhakti-wise, I'll preserve it. So Krishna gives lots and lots of assurances, you know. So, and another thing he says that the yogi, the bhakti yogi, even if he doesn't remember me at the end of his life, for whatever reason, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I'll remember him because he's dedicated his life to me. How will I let him go? So it's incredible assurances Krishna gives, very kind. And this is why you fall in love with him, because he's giving that loving, kind sort of guidance to us and assurances to us. Okay, anybody else? Any comments at all?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Priti.
After we did chapter 11, and Mataji spoke about the mother feeding the child, I was just trying to also get my head around the bit about where we come from Krishna, like we're there within him, he has some control, but then obviously when we're out of him, then it's like it becomes quite playful. And again, I was thinking, I connected it to the when the mother is pregnant with the child, she's in control of what goes into that child, like completely. Wow. And then, but once the child, you know, is there in, you know, like separate from her, obviously the child can play up whatever, then be like, what kind of like, you know, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. And yeah, there's that kind of thing happening. So yeah, I connected it to that.
Well done. That's a good example. We can use that as an example as well. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. And also in this chapter 12, you mentioned in the slide that you're showing, nor is he envious of anyone or disturbed by their behavior or become his enemy's enemy. For a couple of days now, it's just been this things on my mind where I'm like saying, I am where I should be. And like when I come from this kind of phrase, it just feels really like bliss feeling, like I am where I should be, because it's again connected back to all this, my past life karma, it's come to me. Yeah, and even like a cousin of mine was like, they were saying, I feel so sorry for this little animal that's just been killed by, you know, a predator. And I'm like, you know, it's just karma, you know. But it's nice you have daya, but don't be too like. I mean, you're attached to the bird because it keeps coming in your garden for food. But yeah. So again, it's like it's just karma. It's just meant to be. So yeah.
Yeah.
It was nice hearing this bit as well.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And you're right. You know, if you sort of accept it, it's not we're going to accept it out of defeat. It's not.
No.
It's a question of accepting out of responsibility. Yes, okay, I must have done something wrong. I don't know what, but this is how law of karma works. And I'll accept it. But it doesn't mean I'm going to give up my faith in the Lord. I'm going to patiently tolerate this at the same time. And this verse is one of the most amazing verses in the Bhagavad, you know, and I often repeat it to myself actually, because it gives so much comfort. One who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. Generally, we blame God. Generally, even those who are theists will say, it's your fault that this is happening, my dear Lord. You can do something about this. Why don't you do something? I'm praying to you, relieve me of my suffering. And the tendency is to blame the Lord. But actually, the Lord, He's doing His best to reduce that suffering. You have to suffer because it's your karma. He won't necessarily interfere with that aspect. But if we understand that, then we're in a really nice place. Priti, did you have anything else to say? Any other comments? No. Thank you for sharing.
No.
It was really, really nice to share that. Especially, I like your example of the baby in the womb. Yeah, that's superb. Nice of you share. Anybody else? Would you think this thought process might help if one is going through some difficulties? Do you think this thought process might help you? Anybody awake? We can never tell on Zoom, that's the problem. Pitambar.
Hurry, Paul, I'm here, don't worry. No, there's Mataji's, both Mataji's points were brilliant, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's just totally, you know, it just enlivens you know, with such fantastic, you know, how much, you know, everybody's absorbing all this, you know, and I think I've got another month of this coming as well, considering I haven't been asked to go back to work. And when I'm seeing the Mataji's, oh my God, Mataji's just explained chapter 6 all the way to 12. Right, you better start properly sorting out chapter 1 to 4 and stop making excuses. You know? So for me, I was listening to it, I was feeling embarrassed. Oh my God, I've got to get this sorted. I'm going to get it sorted as well. But no, it's absolutely brilliant. It's lovely.
Thank you for sharing that.
I mean, you know what? With Krishna consciousness, it's best just to be honest. You know?
Yeah.
You know, you'll make much more progression, because then somebody could, you know, say, yeah, you know, this is what you want to do.
Actually, yeah, Krishna enters your heart when you do that, and then he'll sort you out. No, very good. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you very much. Yeah, Pitambar. Okay, so we can do the Nishinga Kavach. Oh,
She's
Karuna. Karuna is there, right? So Karuna first. Can you give us?
Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah. Can you give us? Chitra told us how nice it was yesterday. Can you just give us your point of view?
Yes. In fact, we didn't. We were not present here when there was the Vyas Puja last year, so I miss it a lot. So I'm very happy this time I was here. In fact, I couldn't go anywhere. I wanted to go to meet my daughter, but it's not possible. So it's nice to be here and such gathering and praising Guru Maharaj and making preparations and all. And I did the kirtan for Guru Maharaj after so many years.
Mm. Yeah, well done.
And then the prasad was very nice. Everybody was very happy that I met one Mataji who didn't know what was happening. So she was asking, why is so many things there, so many preparations today, why so many offerings, and why such a long program? So I was explaining that it's Krishnadas Maharaj, His Holiness, Vyas Puja Day celebration. So she was very happy to know about Guru Maharaj. And then the Prabhu Govinda, he posted videos on his Facebook page.
Okay. I saw one which Chitra sent to me. I'll have a look
Yeah.
at the others. It was really nice. So many devotees were there. Amazing.
Yeah, we may be having some 200, maybe.
Wow, that's amazing. Very good. Very, very nice. I want to ask you
The
what.
best part is that we don't have any COVID cases, so there is no more confinement. So we have been able to celebrate.